Welcome to the TBN studios in Virginia Beach. I'm Tony Suarez, and I am the host of Una Familia. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have my friend Franz with me today, who last week told us one of the most amazing stories that I've heard in recent memory, and went through all kinds of things. We'll review it a little bit, but then there's this radical turnaround that takes place, and he's now become one of the most successful businessmen here on the East Coast. And so I'm happy to have Franz here. We're going to hear his story, but before we do that, I want to continue celebrating what God has done through Trinity Broadcasting Network and through TBN Salsa the last 2 years. God gave this vision to Matt and Lori Crouch and Pastor Sam Rodriguez, and so this is the genesis. This is a story. Matt Crouch is home, of course, watching TBN. What else would you watch? And so he's home watching TBN, and he sees James Robinson and he sees Samuel Rodriguez at a church in Dallas, and James Robinson and Sam Rodriguez are praying together, and James is praying specific things over Sam Rodriguez. And so Matt says, I need to meet him. Someone set it up. I want to meet this Sam Rodriguez fellow. And the next day, Matt goes to Jerusalem for a conference, and in walks Sam Rodriguez by happen chance, by coincidence, you could say, although I would say divine providence. They walk into the same room, they're at the same meeting, and they get to talking. And the question was asked, how do we reach second to fifth generation Latinos in the United States? And as only Pastor Sam can do, he had an instant answer. He said, well, Matt, here, this is what you got to do. You take Billy Graham's message, Martin Luther King's march, you throw it in a blender, and you put a little salsa on top, and you mix it all together. That's what'll do it. And Matt says, well, that's it. We need TBN Salsa. That's it. And we need you to help us launch this network. And that's how TBN Salsa came to be. That's the story. That's the baby story of TBN Salsa. And from that day until now, it's now available in over 40 million homes in the United States. Cable networks in Denver and San Diego and Chicago are picking it up. Right here in my hometown of Virginia Beach, turns out that this is one of the regions in the United States where TBN Salsa is the most watched. So Virginia Beach, North Carolina, all this area, Richmond, thank you so much. Continue to do so. And now here's the part where I need your help. For those of you here in this area, I need you to call Cox, and I need you to call Verizon, and I need you to call whoever your provider is. Those of you watching us nationally, I need you to call DirecTV, and I need you to call Dish Network. And there's so many more names that I'm going to forget, but I need you to call whoever you get your cable or satellite service through, and tell them that you want TBN Salsa to be part of your channel package. And just start telling them the story. I mean, come on, you're Pentecostal, some of you, just go ahead and start testifying. Say, I watch TBN Salsa 20 hours a day, and this happened, and this happened, and this. They have some guy named Franz. Ask him, say, do you know who Franz is? And then when they say no, say, well, you need to tune into TBN Salsa and watch Franz. And Franz said this, and Tony said this, and Pastor Sam said this, and Matt, Lori this. And just go tell the story of how this network has been a blessing to you. And then after you hang up the phone, I need you to get on social media, hashtag TBN Salsa, and tell everyone else what a blessing it's been, and encourage others to tune into the network, and then write to your providers, and then write to TBN, and let us know where you are, let us know where you're watching, and let us know what your favorite programs are, or who your favorite hosts are, because through your help, as we do this together, we believe that by the end of the year, the footprint of TBN Salsa is going to be even greater than where it is right now in these summer months. But again, we need your help. So thank you for loving TBN. Thank you for your years of loyalty to this family of networks. And then one more thing. Not only are we going to be part of your channel package, but we're a part of your mobile app. If you'll go to your store and you'll download the TBN app, you can now watch TBN Salsa live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You download the app, click on Watch Live, and then the 29 different networks that make up the TBN family will pop up. And so you click on your favorite, which I know is TBN Salsa, and you click on TBN Salsa, and there we are, live every day. What a blessing this network has been. And I am joined by my friend Franz. Franz came on here last week and told us an incredibly compelling story of how your life began, the things you've lived through, from a parent that tried to commit suicide multiple times, being expelled from school, selling drugs or delivering drugs, gang activity, virtually every horror story that you could think of that we would never want for our kids. But not only did you live it, you survived it. And if Pastor Sam Rodriguez was here today, he would say that God didn't bring you through that for you to simply survive. God brought you through that so that you would thrive. We go from survival or from surviving to thriving. In a biblical context, surviving would be those wilderness years of the people of Israel when they were in the desert. Thriving is when they reach the potential of their promise. We talked last week about commas and how some people want to put a period on their story and say it's over. But the Bible says that God is the author of our faith, and so He'll take what looks like a period and turn it into a comma, and this side is not the full story. You have to keep reading to get the full context or the full narrative. And your story starts with all kinds of incredible plots and twists. And forgive me, I'm not trying to diminish it to just plots and twists, but so many things that happen in your life. There's some people that have only experienced one of those things. There's some people that haven't experienced any of those things. You experience all of it. Yet you don't use it as an excuse to be another statistic. You took this and had this radical turnaround. You had a spiritual encounter with God, but you took a radical turnaround and hard work and became an incredibly successful businessman here on the East Coast. So let's pick up the story from the turnaround. You said you gave your life to God, and you said you started, you developed a work ethic. You started working hard. So let's pick up the story from that part. You said you were expelled from high school. You had how many scholarships available?
9.
You had 9 full ride scholarships available, and you lost all of them because you got expelled from school. And then you have this turnaround. Does the turnaround include you going back to formal education?
No, it ended up just going back workforce, not to school.
Okay, now that's important, and but I need to throw a disclaimer in there for our viewers.
Absolutely.
I cannot express enough the value of education to you and how important it is that you stress and value education for your children. The reason our parents, those of us that are second and third generation immigrant, the reason our parents worked 2 and 3 jobs and spent hours doing whatever it is that they did, the reason they did that is not so that you would do the same. They did it so that you would never have to do that. They did that so that you would become educated and that you would become a professional, because the decisions that you make will have lasting effects on the generations that follow you. And it is important to establish education as one of those bedrocks, because education is the key that unlocks the door to leave poverty. It really is.
Absolutely, I believe it.
And now, but
I squandered it, but I believe what you say is very important.
And for full disclosure, Franz, and the show is not about me, but brother, I got kicked out of high school too. And I don't talk about it a lot because I used to tell the story a lot. And then I had some young people say, well, hey, Pastor Tony, you didn't graduate high school. And that's not the story that I want to give. So I'm actually going back. I'm going back to finish my education and to finish my degree, because I have 3 little kids at home and I want them to see me with my master's degree. And so but that's a story about, that's something that I'm doing. But sometimes a formal education just it's not available for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so you dug out the hard way. You did it through, you won the lottery, you scratch and won, or
no.
You did hard
work. I mean, it's not easy. Once you squander, I believe God gives you opportunities. A lot of times, if you don't grasp that opportunity, it's gone. It goes to someone else. So for a long time, I was like, wow, my life, I wasted this opportunity. It's gone. And I felt like, hey, what am I going to do? And I was blessed with a coach, for example. I remember playing soccer, and I stayed in touch with him. He used to tell me a lot of sports things and tie it into life. Look, how you worked in sports, you need to work in life.
Yeah.
Put that same energy to this. Or if you're doing wrong, focus in good. And my dad, he wasn't there a lot when we were younger because he had to work, but he did teach us work. After, if he was there on a weekend, he'd take me, and I'm like, hey, my friends are here. He would take us when he was there, or uncle. I saw work, and I knew what it was. And unfortunately, I was influenced in the easy way, right, as a young kid. But it wasn't easy. I remember struggling to pay. I had one full-time job working at a scrapyard, and then another part-time job delivering chicken wings and food, right?
It's important you tell that story.
It wasn't easy.
Because once we tell people how blessed you are, number one, they're going to call, see if you lend them $20. And then number two, they're just going to assume that somebody handed you money. And it's important that they hear the story and the journey so that they don't get discouraged in their own journey. So you're delivering chicken wings and you're working in a scrapyard.
In a scrapyard, learning how to, basically, I used to get so dirty, it would blow your mind. I have to take 2 showers, have to put on like a Carhartt just to get, and, metal and different things, where people pretty much go and sell metal for money, and we would clean it and whatnot. And it wasn't easy. It was a struggle, and I always strive, like inside I felt like God gave me a desire for something, and my mom, was at this time, thank God, she was, God had restored her from the depression and stuff she went through. And she, would encourage me a lot of times. And a few years went by, and just something in my mind told me one day I drove by a Jackson Hewitt tax place, right? And I'm like, man, and I had seen business, different things, and I like fast and to move, and I'm like, something just told me to do this, and I went, and I was like, how am I going to do this? I'm working 1 full-time job, 1 part-time job. How can I do?
So something told you that you needed to like look into.
I felt like led to
tax preparation.
Yeah, so I think for a course, right?
Yeah.
And I went and I did it. I went and signed up, looked into it, and I'm like, man, how am I going to do this? It's like 3 days a week and late at night. I'm like, I don't know. But I signed up for it, and I went, and it's something that I met this older gentleman. He was a CPA, and he taught the class, and back then it was on paper, how to do taxes on paper. Nowadays it's just,
Sure.
It's
you can do it
easy.
on your phone now.
Easy on your phone, and so easy. So I liked it and found like, wow, this is interesting. I can actually use my mind, for something and not just. So I took it. Wasn't easy, but I made sure I finished it. I always was brought up, you start something, you finish it.
Sure.
And I finished that course, and I ended up working there during tax time. So I had 3 jobs.
Wow.
So I worked there that year, and I think I did a whopping like 67 tax returns. I don't know if you know that's a lot of, not much, right?
That means nothing, huh?
Yeah, it's nothing.
A lot of money.
Nothing. But I liked it.
But you were doing what you like.
I found something I liked.
Now, I'm not a businessman, but at a few different times in my life, like I fancied myself, like I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to do some. I probably have started like 75 eBay stores that lasted a week, and then I gave up on them. Anyway, that's another story. But let me ask you a question, and I don't mean to throw you off with this, but what is it, when your finances are connected to your dream, how does that affect you? And this, I guess this is what I'm trying to ask. And for those of you watching, none of this is scripted, so we're just talking here. Is it important to have multiple streams of income? Because and this is why I ask, because if all of your finances is tied to that dream that you have, and that dream isn't working, you're almost going to have to give up so that you can make ends meet. How does that work?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, that's what happens a lot of times with people. Looking back, right, I can say that happens a lot of times, because reality, right, is we have bills, and you have to pay your bills. And if you're not making money and pursuing your dream, and you can't, what are you going to do, right? You have to work. It's not easy, but it is intertwined. And I personally found it difficult, because at the first year, like I said, luckily I had 2 jobs.
Yeah.
So full-time, part-time, and part-time. So I wasn't making money. Yeah. But like what you said, the second and third stream
they were
of money
taking care.
is very important.
So you would encourage entrepreneurs that are listening and watching, you would encourage them to not quit their day job just because they have a
not
dream.
Quit your day job, and keep it, and get a nice, if you're pursuing your dream, take it slow, get a nice solid foundation.
And that's not a lack of faith?
I don't look at it as lack of faith. I mean, I look at it as planning, right? Because that tells us to plan and be diligent, right? And you can't just jump into something.
You have to have a plan. Sometimes we get, and again, this, we're here on TBN. I mean, look, we're people of faith. We love the Lord, and we're moved sometimes by the moment, and we want to give our all. We want to go all in to this, but you can go all in and still plan And that doesn't mean that you have a lack of faith. That doesn't mean that you're not believing God for success. There's scriptures that are very clear where the Lord says, make a plan or make a vision, write it down, make it plain, be able to understand. I mean, there has to be some practical steps towards your success. And I think this one's important because I've heard, 1 out of every 4 immigrants is going to start their own business. That's just a fact here in the United States. But we need to learn how to do it the right way so that we are successful going forward.
I agree, 100%. Because I now, got in years later to consult, and I have so many people come and I want to buy a restaurant. I want to do that. How much money do you have? And they just enough for first month. And I'm like, you need to step back and look. Can you do it? You should have, a few months. Exactly what you're saying. Be planned. And
we're going to make sure that Franz's information is on the screen, or at least the email for the show, so that you can get in touch with him, because I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate that you're telling people the truth. These are the kind of people that you need to be able to talk to. Someone that's going to hear your vision and not discourage you, but they're going to help you make it plain and say, okay, that's step 1. Now, let me give you steps 2 through 9 so you know what's next. So you go from scrap metal, delivering chicken wings, and you start learning tax preparation.
Yeah, so the first year, I
67 returns.
That's it.
What about year 2?
Year 2, up to like about 385.
Year 3?
Year 3, I started teaching classes in English, Spanish, and got to like almost 1,000, like 860
Okay,
returns.
so in a 3-year span, you go from preparing like 67 tax returns to close to 1,000 tax returns. Are you still delivering chicken wings?
No, not the third year.
Are you still scrapping metal?
No, the third year, because I started like just taking some classes online too to learn a little bit of an accounting. Why? Because I found that I tried to learn from mistakes, right? Because I learned from my own. So the gentleman that was a franchisee, I worked for him, right? And then I ended up in the third year being in charge of all his offices, teaching classes. But I'd pay attention, and I would realize that a lot of clients would be turned away because they didn't do business tax, right? And I'm like, why didn't I do that? So let me look and see how I can do that myself or get certified, and started studying a little bit online, And
you speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And you said, we have 10 minutes here, so I'm going to throw in some details. You became the #1 tax provider for Hispanics in the country. You must live in Houston or Los Angeles or in the heart of New York. Where did you do that?
Richmond, Virginia.
You did that in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
Nobody says Richmond, Virginia.
Nobody says that. Nobody would think that. But what I saw when I worked with him, right, is that I saw the opportunity, and I also saw that, like, when people came in, like, there wasn't customer service, right? I saw the need for help.
It's not always about geography. Last month we had a lady on the program whose name slips my mind, and forgive me, from Ohio, from Cincinnati, Peruvian, worked in a laundromat. She said, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Multi-millionaire now, owns so many just doing incredible things, because she said, in Cincinnati,
Gina Williams.
Oh, you know her. See, all these people, they all hang out. Like, they all go to the club. I'm trying to get in whatever club they're a part of. So, but see, they're all like friends on their Facebook or whatever. So she had this incredible story of this success because of a hard work ethic. And it was in a place that you wouldn't assume that a Latino business would be thriving. Just like I wouldn't assume. I moved to Virginia 12 years ago. And when I came here, you couldn't even buy corn tortillas. I mean, you could buy not the real kind. I mean, not the kind that, we know. So, like, my goodness. And here you are having, like, one of the fastest growing predominantly Latino businesses in the entire country. Showing me that it's not about geography. It's about passion. It's about work ethic. It's about what are you willing to do? I mean, like, what are you willing to do to make yourself a success? Now, we talked last week about the good old days, because you and I are decades old in the plural. How old are you?
42.
You're 42. You're my elder. You're 42, and you told me that you were actually at the point where you could retire.
Well, when I
you were about done, man.
I was trying. Yeah. I mean, just to go back a little bit, right? Yeah. When I left, then in that year 3, I remember some things I try to apply things to my own life, right, from learning. And one thing the gentleman that I was working for, I saw he really didn't care. You know, we need money, right? We need money. We got to pay bills. We got to do this. But so many times people would come with problems, and I'd go to him, hey, well, this person had this issue. He said, did we get paid? Yes. Don't worry about it. I'm like, what? They're not going to come back. So I would go out of my way to fix things, right? Yeah. And I found, like, this is not too good. He's not going to be around too long. So I had he came to me and was like, you know, your time to sign a non-compete. And I said, you know, Jim, I think I'm going to start my own business. Could you help me, or can you give me advice about, like, how much does it cost for this particular franchise I'm working for? And he's like, no, it's too much money, $150,000, another 100, you need like $250,000. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have that. How am I going to do that? So it kind of discouraged me, right? Sure. So what I did is I started looking on my own. And I go to him, I found out, like, I've researched, I found you could do EFIN, this, that, and I tell him, like, I'm going to start my own. And he's like, okay, well, stay one more year. Because I was managing all his offices, everything, teaching, and you don't have to sign a non-compete. I said, okay. So I stayed, and the following year I left. And when I started business for myself, I was scared. I was like, oh, how am I going to pay all my bills? How am I going to do this? I'm going to be...
Yeah, because now you're not doing chicken wings and scrap metal. I mean, now you're all in.
All in, buying, you know, and wow, I have found a place, really cheap rent. Okay, what do I do now? And I would say God has always been there for me. You know, it started by myself. I made a map. And then like a week later, this girl came through the door looking for a job. Actually, she came through with her husband. Her husband looked for a job. And then the next day, she called me that she lost her job. And I wouldn't say a coincidence, but she worked in taxes. So I said, you know what, today, you go to cover these streets. Next day, I go. So we just would go out every day. By the end of year 1, we probably had about like 100 businesses we did payroll for all year, because I saw an issue as like traditional tax industry. They just make their money in 4-month period. I was like, no, I need to make money all year. I have bills all year, right? So I was like, I need to focus on bookkeeping, payroll, and I focused on those things. And by year 3, got up to 300. By year 5, 500 payroll clients. So every month we're making money, right? And then I went from me to her, and then 8 full-time people. And then I just would have people come. It turns into like consulting as well, because tax industry, you're there all year, you're doing payroll, accounting, and we got one restaurant guy, has 8 restaurants, he recommends, you know, it's just a referral, and it just goes. And it got to the point we couldn't go anywhere, even ask for any more work, right? We couldn't even. Wow. And one thing I also learned from him is administration. I was like, well, when I'm making money, I always said to myself when I start, I'm like, hopefully I can make money to pay my bills. And if God blesses me to make money, I need to be smart about it. You know, I got to give to him. I got to help people when I can. I got to invest in something that's going to give me money in case my business goes down. Sure. So I really got into, I would have clients. I had one big client come to me, had like 15 restaurants. He said, I'm going to give you one and see how you do the payroll, bookkeeping. And I'm like, okay, I got to take care of this guy. Within 2 years, he gave them all to me. And then he's come to me, hey, can you help me find property? So I ended up over this time, creating a network of brokers and different things. So I had 5 years into it, I had a revelation, why don't I open a property management company? So I kind of open a property management company because I would help, say you come to me, find property, and then you would use my company.
So you're doing property management, you're doing tax preparation, you're doing payroll management, you're overseeing all these different things, and you're in your 30s, and you're ready. At this point, you really are realistically at a point where you can retire. And in the last 3 minutes of our show today, I just want you to help. Let's tie some loose ends. You meet a man who I happen to believe is one of the most generous people I've ever met, who's John Hewitt. And John Hewitt literally pulls you out of retirement and names you the COO of Siempre Tax. Is that am I pretty accurate there?
Yeah, pretty. I mean, John, like you said, is a visionary, and he. Yeah, because it's information, how many tax returns you do. I was decided to try to step back and retire, and they purchased my office, right? And using it as a model for, you know, would you see siempre tax? And I would meet John and got to get to know him, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I get to meet this person, this visionary who, at one time, you know, people told me he was crazy, right? Because it was a tax program, software, you know, and he started, I guess, getting to know me, right? Me getting to know him, and he told me his vision, you know, for siempre tax, as far as you know, the Hispanic community, a lot of times is taken advantage of. And me, one of the times with business, and I believe help us grow, is that we were like, okay, we need to work hard, take care of our clients, go out of our way to fix things, and have integrity, right?
Have integrity.
And so many times, like, people come to our office and they will go place and they, you know, stole a refund, or they go to this place and they paid and they didn't put their name on it. And you know, you learn all these things as you're in the field, per se, as I was. And I'm like, no, we're going to help these people. And then you have a client for life. And when I got to know John, he understands. He's been in the so long, 49 years in the tax industry. And then he's like, you know, I see the need for the Hispanic community, and, you know, how they're taken advantage of, right? And how there's no place, and how the potential's there, but and they need help. And he started, you know, explaining to me his vision, and I'm like, whoa, I get it. I mean, I believe I don't think I did much, right? I was able to do it on a small scale in one place. And he offered me a job, and I thought about it, and once meeting with him many times, I decided to come on board, and we've been trying to get this thing rolling, siempre tax. It's been amazing to see it grow and the interest we have.
Over the last 2 weeks, you've met a man who has come from the very bottom of whatever you could say. I mean, hitting rock bottom. Adversity struggles against him, but he decided to keep pushing forward, to work hard, to be passionate about what he's doing. He had a radical encounter with Jesus Christ. His life turned around, and then everything else followed, fulfilling Matthew 6:33 that says, seek first the kingdom of God, and then, yea, all these things will be added unto you. Now the COO of the fastest growing Latino tax provider company in the United States. I hope you've enjoyed this program. We'll see you next week. God bless.